What's up, folks? It is Nigeria alongside Miranda. We got a lot to talk about today. Some history that's going to happen next week. But I think more importantly, what we want to focus on this week is that there's been a lot of chatter about promos and promos not going right and wrongdoing of promos. However, I'm here to say that last night on Impact Wrestling, I enjoyed two promos very, very much so. And we're going to talk about it, break it down, also think which one was the better one. But nonetheless, let's get into this week's review of our hot topic of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. What's up, everybody, and welcome back today as we are ready to dive into our hot topic coming out of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Nigeria alongside of Miranda Morales of thechairshot.com. Miranda, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about this week's episode and pretty selfishly, pretty excited about going into a 3-day weekend. I'm just happy all around.
Yeah, right there with you. But yeah, folks, as always, if you are just first time watching us, we like to talk Impact Wrestling, but with all the things that goes on throughout the week of Impact, we just focus on that one hot topic, maybe a 1A and a 1B, but whatever we deem as the hot topic, the must watch, the must talk about thing coming out of Impact Wrestling. And like, there's something next week, I'm going to talk about quickly in a second that's going to be a big deal. But focusing on this week right now, and I think it's almost like poetic justice because with like so much chat about promos this week and how people use focus groups and then people don't know what focus groups are and all this about promos and whatnot. I thought it was bizarrely interesting that of all the good stuff that happened on Impact Wrestling last night, I mean, Josh Matthews back on commentaries was good to hear him. Kojima debuting. And even like all things preparing as they set their trajectory towards Against All Odds on Saturday, June 12th, I thought the promos were like the most interesting thing that came out of it. And I say, you know what? Yeah. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the two promos that happened and a little bit of the change in dynamics with them. Now, if you didn't watch Impact, then I definitely suggest going to their YouTube channel where you can watch both of the promos on there. And I mean, like, they usually post most of like the highlights from matches, but like if they're posting promos, then here now, they must be good. And like the two I want to focus on is W. Morrissey and Violent by Design. Starting with W. Morrissey's here. Now, if you have not been keeping up with Big Cass, formerly of WWE, and then I think he was going on the independent as Cass SL, Cass has had a very interesting career thus far. He's had obviously some challenges in WWE. He's had some health challenges, and he just finds himself in the news or surrounded by controversy left and right. And when he debuted back at I can't even was it in Vegas when he debuted on the Independence? I forget what show it was, but he did a recent debut at
in Texas. I think he's been working for SWE Fury.
Thank you. Yep. And when he made the debut, I mean, it was a big deal. Everybody was like, "Yo, look at my man physique! Like he is back. He looks ripped. He looks to be in the best shape of his life, whatever it may be. You're just happy to see, somebody who's had so much struggle to be out there looking good and doing what he does. And then he made a debut at Impact. And I thought that was very interesting as well, because I think it's a good fit. And it was clearly a hole needed there that he easily fills. And, was instantly like, well, what's next with him? What's the program that's going to be worked with him? And last night in this promo, he talked about he essentially called out the wrestling world about their phoniness. Yeah. He says, like, you all, like, what, like, and like, I resonated it, and this is why I feel like it was a promo, but yet an extension of self.
Yes.
Anytime promos or gimmick is, personal or authentic, it just goes a long way. And I resonated with it, because it really encompasses to, like, give the person their flowers while they're here. And he's like, hey, when I was doing bad and when I was, having medical issues, no one reached out to me, but, people were ready to, burn him every single chance they get, and I really felt when he said, like, hey, when I was on the ground, I had a seizure. No one called the 911. People pulled out their phones and was recording it. And I hate that. I hate that so much, because, and I think this is like the narrative of World Star. When somebody gets in a fight, the first thing people do is say, hey, let me record it. And I hate these millenniums in doing so. And I there's a story here in Washington, D.C. where there was a guy that got jumped and the person recorded it. And, the person that got jumped died. And the people that did it obviously got theirs. But the person recorded also did too, because there was an accessory to it, because they was just sitting there watching it. And to think, like, he is like, hey, he had a seizure. That could go any way. And the fact that people were just there watching him, and he said no one called 911 for him. No one checked on him. But when he's doing good, everyone loves him. But when he's doing bad, in the sense of either his career or his health, it's like an act for people. Mm-hmm. I was
it's about fair weather friends, and I think we can all relate to that. We have people who are truly ride or die who are with us, but it also, there are people who are there only for the good times, and especially when you have the bad times, they may be the first to go behind your back and talk trash. And I'm sure that is the feeling that he was expressing in this promo. People he thought were his friends, his colleagues, when he was going through those bad times, were the first ones to talk trash or the first ones to throw him under the bus. And now that he's back in a successful place in his career, now they're ready to jump back on. And I think there's a human nature to it, but I also agree with you that some of the best promos and characters and personalities are an extension of real life. And I think W. Morrissey is going to be a blend of, certain things that he's already learned from WWE and in the independent scene, but actual elements of his personality. And I also think this is a prime example of how underrated Impact can be, because I promise you, if he continues on this trajectory, not only in promos, but in the ring, guess who's going to be knocking on his door again? It's the same company when, Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, your two current champions, they did stints in Impact. So many people have done stints in Impact to just relaunch who they are, to redevelop themselves. And as much grief as Impact has received, and more in TNA, of hiring these, old WWE talents, sometimes the experiments haven't worked, but sometimes they have. And when they've worked really well, it's been that catapult for them to go back to the WWE. So not only are people in the business, as far as wrestlers and fans, keeping an eye on him, I have a feeling that there is going to be some type of management from other promotions looking at how his run here at Impact goes, because just in that promo, with the intensity that he had, but just how naturally that flow, and also how that will then combine in the ring with his work, you definitely see this new level of aggression, this huge, really monstrous guy that in his previous runs in the WWE, was more of a character, kind of more of a gimmick, entertaining and fun. Now we're seeing what a more serious turn can look like for him. And that's really where his power is going to be, not only in Impact, but in any promotion. And I think that this promo itself, like, really was definitive for him, saying that this is a new person, this is a new approach. I know I've been at the bottom. I know what it's like to have nobody by your side. And guess what? I don't need you now. I can do this completely on my own.
Yeah, I mean, and like I also say, like, I don't get a sense of viciousness with him. And before he was more of the muscle, the bodyguard, whatever it may be, with the dynamic with him and Enzo. But like, I feel like he is truly humanizing himself, which I like. His physique and being 7 foot tall, you can't teach that, is obviously there. And that's always going to be a threat. It's always going to be a positive when someone's looking for, new talent. And I think that now that he's working somebody he truly is, I think now all the gears are going to turn. And I think that his stint in WWE is one of those type of things where, like, like you said with Lashley and McIntyre, sometimes you got to get out there, redefine yourself in order to figure out who you are. Or, much like us who aren't wrestlers, sometimes you got to go through something in life to figure out who your best self is. And he just happened to have a combination of both of those right now, which ultimately means that it's funny because this is truly like Violent by Design's kind of like whole thing with a couple of their people now. But it's like now he's truly at his purest form. And I'm really excited to see where it goes because I hated Gia's rebuttal to the interview and what he was saying. I hated it. What was the word she was using? Like,
well, I think she was saying how she looks at the Impact locker room and she sees, people who are friends.
Yeah. But the word she used was bitter. Some people may say that what he said was bitter. I don't like that. I do not. I think that's almost like, and I get it, it's wrestling, but again, for it to be so personal, I also feel like that's an attack on character here. He has no reason but to be himself here. And like that's why I say, like, it just resonates way beyond wrestling here. This is a guy who lost everything, in a life full of potential in wrestling, and then his health is crashing, and then all his peers are crashing, and no one gave him a chance. Like no one thought he was going to. Yeah. There was going to be no type of resilience in this, and here he is.
Well, I think. And maybe that wasn't the right word, but I think she was on the right track of really explaining from an outsider's perspective, especially people who aren't familiar with him. His tone did feel a bit bitter, resentful maybe, of, the business, of the Fairweather Friends, of a lot of things. And maybe the mysterious thing is, and why are you back now? If it was that terrible, if it was that traumatic, if you felt that alone, why are you back? But I still feel like he had such a good rebuttal about, again, that perspective of, people are there one day and they're not the next. He's gone through trials and tribulations that for most people would have absolutely broken them, but he's not. He's back. And he's more intense and he's just more driven than ever. And it could, now it's very clear as far as this is much more bad guy heel work, but it could also translate to,
is it?
Well, I think as far as, going up against two of the biggest, baby faces that the company has.
Well, let's talk about that though. Let's talk about that. I that was actually going to be my part B to this, is that to me, he's not coming off as a heel. I don't see bitter at all. I see him laying down the truth. I see him being completely genuine and transparent to his situation. He is attacking it head on. And you know what's crazy, which is parallel to this? Because if more people were very transparent and direct with their promos, from the good, the bad, and the mishaps, there'll be a lot more connection to the fans here.
Very true.
When you try to say something that you should not be talking about it, or you have no knowledge about, and then you want to pass it off as a promo, then you lose everything in translation. And I think here it's all him. It's all genuine.
Yeah.
So you're connecting. He has me because I'm like, I feel you. And much like you said, you can be here one minute and not the other. That can be friends, or that could be the definition of life.
Yeah.
And that's transcending beyond wrestling now.
And I was going to jump. So the second part I was going to say, my part B too, is that yes, it is more perceived as a heel move when you look at the grand scheme of things. The sneak attack on, or trying to destroy Willie Mack. The attack on Rich Swann and Willie Mack the week before, all of that. And again, the framing of the ultimate underdog of Rich Swann and Willie Mack, who are really beloved by the Impact wrestling community. However, I think if that was done in a live audience, or if you had more of a live audience there, I think you hit the nail on the head that it would have been received a lot more as a humanistic promo, and people would have connected with it. And I think the reaction would have been different. I think fans would have been absolutely more in support of him. And so I think that's going to be an interesting thing as they move along, is that he could really teeter on this back and forth way of more of a tweener, or more just someone who could easily transition from a heel to a face and vice versa. It could all just depend on his promo. It could depend on who he's facing. Because say, he was facing more of a heel, or someone more definitive as a heel, fans could easily interpret what he's doing as, almost an underdog type of story when you think about it. And he could do the underdog story maybe better than Rich Swann. And I think that's going to be a learning lesson for Impact too, is that, you have to have kind of all the right elements and realism in place. And even though Rich Swann is very much an underdog from how he grew up, if you don't have that emotional element to it, and I think Rich Swann really did try, but I just don't think it quite connected as instantaneously as we've seen it with this week's promo by W. Morrissey.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because again, that's why I feel like the change in positions is different here. I feel like he is also taking, and I mean, I at times I'm critical about Impact's writing, but I also say that if you stick through it and trust the process, then the longevity of the storytelling is there. But hey, this is again the underdog story formulating to me. And if you're doing an underdog story, you're automatically the babyface. And I'll also draw another parallel, which this is not very, very, very highly favored by people. But I also think that Jinder Mahal, when he won the WWE Championship, I thought he was also the babyface in that, because he basically said, "Hey, I lost my job.
Yeah.
I was in the worst shape of my life. I go out there. I get in the best shape of my life. I change my nutrition and my dieting. And now look at me. I come back and win the championship. And you all don't like me, because as far as I'm concerned, this is the American dream. I went back out there, reworked myself to get back where I wanted to be, to get to the highest level and win." And he said, and you don't like me because I did that. And I don't understand. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But anytime a door closes, another one opens. This is absolutely something positive. This is absolutely a babyface move. And the fact that people didn't like him only told me one thing. One, people's blurred misconception of what success is mind-boggling to me. And two, anytime somebody speaks anything genuine, it seems to be problematic. Mm-hmm. So I'm just confused. But back to Morrissey, it's just like he is absolutely walking in his own footsteps right now. Yeah. And what he did, what he said, beyond the Willie Mack sneak attack stuff, what he said to me comes off as a babyface. Rich Swann attacking him comes off as a heel. I mean, if you didn't know any better, you're like, oh, this is Sami Callihan coming out, because this is what he does. But it was Rich Swann. So I'll just quickly say this, because I want to talk about by design. This, I think, is a good comeback feud for Rich Swann, because guess what? He doesn't get to wear his same pants in this one no more. He doesn't get to be the underdog or the babyface in it. He actually may have to work heel in this.
Yeah, it's definitely a turn, which I think is necessary for both of them.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is necessary for Rich Swann as far as his longevity, that, I think fans didn't believe him as the underdog in his previous storyline with Kenny Omega. If anything,
not his fault.
He let storyline wise, people down in the company by now, the Impact World Championship now being held by Kenny Omega. And he truly believed in himself, and he didn't meet his own expectations. I feel like this is a perfect formula of, turning around and saying, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do
He,
things for me now.
I,
And I think W. Morrissey is a perfect example or a perfect partner in that, which, he can really start to showcase a different side.
also, too, I mean, Rich Swann is your model employee.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to have a new employee go through, let's just say, training, new hire training, then Rich
Good
Swann is your
point.
person.
Very good point.
You want him involved because
Yeah. He
he's
can,
all
he,
he can
yeah,
work he can work anything, anybody, and he's trusted very highly by the company. So it just makes sense
yeah,
that this happens. Now let's talk about by design really quick. We talked about it, and this is we spent more time on Morrissey because we talked about this last week a little. Eric Young is so damn priceless.
so good.
He's so damn
So
priceless.
good.
He doesn't have to wrestle to completely get
Mm-mm.
everyone over. And this promo was so good because if there was any doubt why he acquired this roster of talent and why they stand so firm and why they should be feared, this promo answered every question
Yeah.
that you had. I mean, I I popped for his whole segment on Rhino because I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Because
feared Rhino when I was younger.
we talked about it last week about how that Collier Shot trophy, was kind of in the background. Like we had forgotten all about it. And the fact that he addressed not only Rhino, but that trophy and that opportunity and how strategic it was. To me, the vibes that I got off this promo was in a movie, especially an action movie, when the villain reveals their big master plan. And for the
Yeah.
audience, you're like, why are you telling us this? Other than it's the movie, you need to know that. But
The,
it felt like this big villain giving the big reveal as to this is why, this is the big plan that I've set all along.
this
And it
this
made sense. And it, if anything, made me really appreciate not only Eric Young, but Violent by Design as a whole. It really clicked for
this
me. And I just, yeah, I loved it.
I was gonna say this is John Kramer ish from Saw. This was the whole like why is this person being attacked and why is the
Mm-hmm.
person in this device and what did they do, and he laid it all out and you nailed it just like a super villain in any film, any genre. He said, this is my plan, this is why these people are aside of me, here's what we're going to do. I loved it. Anything,
Yeah.
what else were you going to say on that? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. I mean, I feel like the delivery by Eric Young as well, like that couldn't have felt more perfect. And for him to continue to be the mouthpiece of this group is absolutely needed because as we haven't necessarily heard any of the other members try to cut a promo, but I feel like in this time that Eric Young is in needing to heal and needing to recuperate, that what it will continue to be vital is his voice connecting all the dots, his voice explaining why they do what they do and what they're planning on doing to the Impact roster. And I feel like you then have your muscle with Joe, with
Doring.
Rhino.
Oh, you
Oh
said
yeah,
Joe.
with
Sorry.
with Joe Doring, with Rhino.
You said Joe, and I thought Samoa Joe instantly.
Ah,
I swear, but maybe.
uh,
But I will leave it at that.
and Diener. Like I just, it's all of these elements that come together in the muscle and the delivery in the ring, and then Eric Young as the mouthpiece for the group, and really explaining a group name sometimes can seem kind of frivolous or just catchy, but he explained that there is a reason why they called Violent by Design. It was all part of his master plan. And it's only someone like Eric Young who could put this together. Someone with the experience, but also someone with, who has that eye for not only talent, but for destruction. And so, I mean, it just came together in such a wonderful way. Like, I'm all about storyline continuity and explaining loopholes and things. Like, they did such a great job in this promo that is going to be a hard one to top for, I think, the rest of the summer. I feel like this is going to be one of the best promos and best moments for Impact out of the entire year.
Yeah, by design, being the bottom line theme of it. I loved it. I would lobby to have Eric Young in some film or television show.
Oh, yes.
Or even, even if he doesn't desire that, I hope somebody reaches out for voice acting work, because dude is money.
Yes, that's why it literally felt like I was watching a movie. Like, just the fact that he laid it all out. I think that's why my mind just automatically went to that. It's one of the best, like villainous explanations that I have ever really listened to. And the fact that it was in a wrestling ring, like, I think your Saw analogy is great, because if anything, it got me thinking to all of these points of when you started off with Joe Doring, and then when you had Diener join on, and then when you had Rhino, and all of these elements coming together. It does make you think, now they can teeter on, what do they do next? Do they keep it in this core 4 group, or do they look outward and maybe bring somebody else in?
I'll say this though, I said this last week. There has to be a ton of faith with Eric Young, which is why he had to been the highest level of priority in recruitment last Slammiversary. And I think they're going to continue to trust him and his vision. And either way, they bring somebody else in or they leave it as it is, I think it's going to be safe. I think his promo spoke about his vision. And I also think that it never came off corny, which means that this is well thought out. Mm-hmm. There was no focus group needed, and that's why it just transcended in a way like, oh, this is real deal. Mm-hmm. By the way, I need to order me a Violent by Design shirt. I'm just waiting for Impact to announce that they're going back with live shows. I'm just waiting.
I think so. We talked a little bit about authenticity with W. Morrissey's promo. I think, as you're talking about Eric Young, I think he's very underutilized as just a strong wrestling mind. And I feel like there's definitely elements in his promo that were authentic of, these were the people that were chosen. And there's a reason behind this, and how methodical that he is, but also like he is a strong wrestling mind.
I want to say
that's genius.
That thought is that's the fans' fault, because when he was released, everybody in the locker room was saying like, him, you all are tripping. Like, you don't let this mindset leave a company. And when you have somebody like that available, then you scoop them in, and you don't just make them talent. You let them pretty much create a matrix of touching different things and being able to imprint his knowledge and his experience wherever he goes and whatever he does. And like, again, I've never met him. We've done the the media pass thing with him, but I know people that know him, and it's like, he is the nicest guy you will ever meet. And I think it speaks volumes as to why he's such a valued wrestler. Because if he's a nice guy that you'll ever meet, and that's what people are saying that know him and have met him, but as a character, as a gimmick, he is a super villain that you think, like, I never want to cross paths with this guy. I don't trust this guy. Like, this guy, he'll jump you in the back alley with no remorse, and then cut a promo on top of you while he's on a torn ACL. I think that's because of how much he put thought and psychology into this gimmick and into this stable, and I'm loving it.
I think one of the greatest gifts that we get from Eric Young, whether it's in ring or now in this, is the psychology behind wrestling and what it can offer to fans, and how it translates and weaves in and out of in-ring matches to storyline. I think that's just been a huge value added to Impact, and I think that we're going to continue to see all members of Violent by Design elevated And who knows, what that means in the long run if they end up making a plan to try and get all the gold in Impact, or is it just more a tour of destruction, or whatever it may be, kind of what this end goal is. It almost feels like it's just putting wrestling in the vision that Eric Young sees fit, and that is a very violent vision, but it's also entertaining, it's enthralling, and it's something different that brings a level of authenticity. You look at, other groups and factions that try and have that same message, but it doesn't quite deliver for whatever reason. Sometimes the mouthpiece is very strong, but the team itself isn't, or maybe the team is and they don't quite have the mouthpiece needed. I think this is a beautiful blending of both. And again, just the experience and the psychology and the understanding that Eric Young has, not only of wrestling, but especially Impact Wrestling. I mean, his name is synonymous with it. Future Hall of Famer, absolutely. And he's using that to leverage, someone who just came into the company not too long ago with Joe Doering, someone who's been on the roster for quite some time but never quite got their footing in Diener, and then, a wrestling legend in Rhino that's been kind of more a comedic character now for years, and now is at the core of Rhino that a lot of people remember from, yesteryear. Like, I feel like it's such an amazing blend of rejuvenating not only one career in Eric Young's, but three careers with the rest of the members. And again, they could really do so many things in Impact. We don't quite know yet what the end goal is, but I think that's going to be part of the journey as a fan to witness that and, just see who comes across their paths and who they kind of just eliminate every time. I have a feeling that they're going to be a really dominant team for quite some time.
Yeah, and I mean, like anything, in order to make a good hero or babyface, you got to have a good villain. So
Yep.
there's a win-win situation involved with anybody who works a program with them. So, but yeah, good promos by the two of them. Absolutely my favorite parts and must talk about moments from Impact last night. Quickly before we wrap up, next week history will be made because on Thursday, June 3rd, the first 60-minute Iron Man match takes place on Impact Wrestling. It starts on BTI before the Impact, and if it goes, it says 60-minute, so it will bleed into Impact Wrestling, which is just a fantastic idea. I love this. I love change. I love differences in booking. And this is something that I think should be very, very interesting. And that's going to be with TJP versus Josh Alexander. That's going to be a banger. Also coming this Tuesday will be the Impact Wrestling Press Pass, which we'll be a part of. So we will have a chance to talk to these two, hosted by Gail Kim, and talk about this historic match that is coming up. So should be a very entertaining week of Impact Wrestling next week. And we will obviously be back on Friday to talk about it all.
Yes.
So with that being said, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I mean, it's definitely a historic match. I think it's great that the honor is going to the X Division, because when you think about a lot of history being made, a lot of crazy, outrageous matches, the X Division is always on the forefront of it. I'm very interested in seeing how really a clash of styles is going to work in this match, because you have TJP, who, I mean, has grown on an international scale and has had experience and training, in Asia and Mexico, and so he's a little bit more of the X Division kind of high flyer, fast paced. Josh Alexander is much more technical and traditional in it. So not only is that a clash of differences in a ring in a traditional time frame, but when you take that to 60 minutes, it leaves a whole lot of questions as to how are they both going to be able to sustain themselves, how are they going to be able to take advantage of the time frame, but also of their styles, and how they can use that to get literally one up on their opponent. And so I was just really fascinated by the entire story and frame of this. I do think it's interesting how they kind of came up with this on the fly. I wish there was a little bit more drawn out as to how we get to an Iron Man match, but I think the concept itself and the fact that we're going to be seeing that next week, starting on BTI, bleeding into Impact Wrestling is a really great idea. So I'm definitely going to be watching for that.
Yeah, cannot wait to check it out. Should be a banger and a chess match nonetheless. But yep, that would do it today, folks. As always, look out for us each and every Friday, the Friday following Impact Wrestling on Access TV, which is on Thursday. And hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you can see exactly what time we're going to go live. And when you do check us out live, jump in the comments, let us know your thoughts about what we're saying. That way you can be a part of the show, be heard, and also probably change the trajectory of our conversation. So we appreciate everybody checking us out either live or afterwards, or pre-recorded, shall we say, and leaving comments and love. But yep, that'll do it today, folks. So we'll see you next Friday with a ton more to talk about, I'm sure. So thank you so much for tuning in, folks, and we'll see you then.
Bye.